Okay, good morning. It's 9 o'clock. I'll ask everybody to be seated and ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, there's a copy of the Open Meetings Act located here on the north wall of the legislative chambers. Also, in the back, there's an automatic defibrillator if required for health reasons. We will go now and call to order the Board of Equalization meeting. Mr. Clerk.
Good morning, Commissioner Borgeson.
Present.
Commissioner Marine Boyle. Commissioner Mike Boyle. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Friend.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan.
Present.
Mr. Chair.
Here. Item A is approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Item B, call for meeting is set Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 is the date for hearing on certified assessments and corrections. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Mike Boyle, second by Commissioner Friend. Seeing no questions, roll call Zoom, please vote in the chamber.
Commissioner Borgeson.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
And Commissioners, I said something to Chair Rogers about this, but the system's being a little slow this morning, so it's going to take a minute. I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, do you want to just do a voice vote for everybody?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Sure, roll
Okay.
call.
Commissioner Marine Boyle. Yes. Commissioner Mike Boyle.
Yes.
Commissioner Kavanaugh. Yes. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item C is citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments on Board of Equalization related items that are not listed on the agenda? Are there any citizens' comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to items D, E, F, G, and H. Is there a motion to approve those items and adjourn? Motion by Commissioner Mike Boyle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Friend. Seeing no discussion, roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marine Boyle. Yes. Commissioner Mike Boyle. Yes. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Yes. Commissioner Friend. Yes. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Commissioners Morgan and Borgeson voting virtually, everybody else in person.
We will call to order the Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson.
Present.
Commissioner Marine Boyle. Commissioner Mike Boyle. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Here. Item 1 is minutes and claims. Letter A is approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Item B is approval of claims submitted for payment processed through Tuesday, April 26, 2021. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Mike Boyd. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Friend. Roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Marine Boyle, Commissioner Mike Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Friend, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Commissioners Borgeson and Morgan voting virtually, everyone else in person.
We'll go on to the consent agenda. There are 8 items. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Mike Boyle. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, I'd like to know what the item A is for starters, the third renewal of the Keno Lottery interlocal agreement. If there's any change or what this is? Mr. Bloomingdale, is he
Patrick.
here?
Who? Teresa. Okay.
Teresa York County Attorney's Office. So this is essentially identical to the last amendment that this board did for this particular agreement, other than the change of dates. And this is this agreement has not yet expired, but we are bringing it before the board before it does so.
And can you refresh my memory? I should remember this, but does Douglas County operate the Keno outside of the city limits?
I would defer to Patrick on that. I think I don't know the answer to that off the top. I'm seeing shaking heads from Joe Lorenz. Yes, we do.
So I don't
We get
mean
go ahead.
Okay, and so we have quite a few locations, or do you know?
I have no idea the number of locations. I know we do
Joe?
receive, Joe's giving me hand signals. It's 8. The number of locations is 8, yeah.
Okay, and so do we split that money with the city, or do we get it all?
We get a portion, I don't know, we get a portion of the proceeds related to the total Keno. And this is the agreement that we've had with the city for quite a long time. But I'll let Joe speak to the money specifically if you
Okay.
want more on the money.
Thank you. Sorry to pull that on you, but
Oh, no, that's
didn't
quite all
have this
right. I just don't
information
handle
yesterday.
that part of it.
okay, thank you.
Sorry, Joe.
Sure. Yeah, Joe Lorenz, County Finance Manager. How the Keno works, about 8 or 9 years ago, they switched it where it was like you were talking about. It was all together, and we got a share, and the city got a share, and then the interlocal got reworked. So now the city gets all the proceeds of how many locations are within the city limits, and we have about 8 locations outside the city limits, and we get the proceeds from those 8 stores, and it comes up to about $200,000 a year.
Okay, and I don't know, I mean, I can understand the city, taking everything in the city, but we don't have quite this relationship. We have, as if we build it on 911, we would be getting more money, that breakdown. Maybe we should,
Well, I don't know if you remember when we renegotiated the interlocal about 8 or 9 years ago. It was, we weren't real pleased at the time, but that's how it wound up.
right, well, we'll put this on somebody's agenda, maybe Mr. Friend's agenda, public safety. No, I'm just, anyway, we'll explore it a little fuller, but I think we ought to be, I'd just like to take a look at it. So thank you for the information.
Yeah, it is interesting that the Keno receipts, because this is a fact of the pandemic, that the Keno receipts are about 150% of budget. So a lot of people have been playing
I'm
Keno.
sorry, would you say that again?
That the Keno receipts are about 150% of budget, because a lot of people have been playing Keno in their spare time with the pandemic.
I don't understand the 150% of budget. What does that mean?
It means we're getting a lot more money in than we anticipated. I mean, instead of 200,000, we're getting close to 300,000.
Okay.
We're exceeding budget on Keno.
All right, well, I'll stop in and talk to you about it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
So, real quick, there is a bill in the legislature to expand Keno so that people can play it on their smartphone. I don't know if you or Marcos might be aware of the possible fiscal.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, so I'm going to turn that over to Marcos.
You're mentioning the revenue up a little bit. This would put them up even further, which would be good.
To expand Keno, Commissioner?
Say again?
To expand Keno, sorry, Marco San Martin, Douglas County Labor.
Right.
It's to expand Keno? I'll look it up. I don't know the
Okay.
bill number off the top of my head.
I just
but-
heard it on NPR this morning that was on the floor, and so. It would
Okay.
be
Yeah, I'll look it up. Just give me a few and
Yeah,
I can,
we're always
or
looking
later
for
in the meeting.
additional sources of revenue, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Commission, oh, just keep going in.
Okay. I just have one other item on item B, which is an appointment of Mark Martinez and John McDonald to the Advisory Council for Community-Based Juvenile Service Grant. We don't have, and I'm sure that there's someplace, the application that they filled in the backup documents, and so I just ask administration if going forward we could have those added to the backup documentation. I know these people, and they're good people, and no problem with the nomination itself. It's just nice to have the backup documentation on who they are, so it's public record.
And Commissioner, we can work on that. Kim Havacutty, Deputy County Administrator over Juvenile Justice Reform. Under the current guidelines that the county has developed with regards to the community-based grant funds, there is no grant application. It just states within it that each of the commissioners gets to appoint a person.
Right.
But we can gladly create a form that would have the basic information that then would be available to all the commissioners. So we will gladly work on that.
Thanks, Kim. I think Karen probably has a form that we use on boards that we do, probably generically would be the same. So
Right. That currently is not a requirement, but we will gladly add that.
that'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, you want to make a note on H?
Yes, on item H, if you look at the agreement, the signature is for Commissioner Borgeson, but it should be Eric Carlson, purchasing agent. So the correct stuff is in front of the commissioners, but if you went online, it would have Commissioner Borgeson instead of Mr. Carlson. So just wanted to note that Mr. Carlson is signing that, not Commissioner Borgeson.
Okay. There is a motion and a second. Commissioner Boyd.
Thanks. Just testing Karen's computer skills. Yes, thanks, Karen. I have a question about, and it's really, well, it's an item D. And I was just curious, is the amount of money in item 3 correct? It talks about an engineering agreement between HCM Architects and Douglas County for the replacement of a bridge. It gives on 192nd Street. And the only cost is $48,500. Is that some preliminary engineering, I assume? It can't be the total cost of a bridge. Is that what you think that is? No big deal, but I just want to be sure it's not a mistake. If nobody knows, we'll just go ahead and approve it and see
Hold
what
on, here's
happens.
Joe.
Joe Lorenz, County Finance, I think that's the architectural fee.
Really?
Yeah, the bridge itself would be a lot more, you're right.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, that sounds, thanks, thank you. And then I wanted to ask about, Joe, while you're there, I want to ask about item E, which is a resolution authorizing an addendum to Deloitte work order to continue to provide current CARES Act services until May 26, 2021. I was confused by this. We're not paying them any more money.
No, we still have money left in the contract we signed with them, but when they extended the CARES Act deadline to December 31st, it gave people more time. So we haven't actually incurred the cost. A lot of the costs coming out of the health department for the vaccination process, some locations. Metro Community College is a bit behind in their putting the HVACs in all their facilities. And the city of Ralston, we're just finishing up too. So, all the money we allocated, but it hasn't all been spent, and we don't really file it with the Office of the Inspector General till the money's been spent. So since, everybody got more time, and this thing's just getting delayed out, but we haven't, so we're still working within budget. It's just gonna take a little longer to get all the filings done.
Okay, that's fine. I just, I do want to.
Yeah, no more money.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
How much have we spent on Deloitte?
let me get back to you on the exact, I do have that number. I don't have it right in front of me. I will get back to you on that. But it's, I think the last time I looked, we still had like 200,000 left in our contractual amount.
200 out of that. What was it?
Let me, I hate to quote a number, I do have a sheet on this, but I have it, I'll get it before the end of the meeting, actually. Okay, sure.
Thanks, Joe.
Roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson,
She's trying to talk.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Marine Boyle, Commissioner Mike Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Commissioners Borgeson and Morgan voting virtually, everyone else in person.
Okay, just so the system clears, everybody should probably hit their deal. It look like it's working now.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move on to items 3. Item A is a resolution recognizing the week of April 11th through 17th as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Is there a motion to approve item A?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Mike Boyle. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Friend. Roll call Zoom. Please vote in the chambers.
Mr. Chair, I think there might be, I know Kathy Allen, our director, is on, and I don't know if there was going to be any staff with her. I wanted to say a few words, but
Okay.
again, we just want to recognize them and thank them because they truly are the first responders, and thank them for their dedication work to Douglas County. But they may want to say something, or actually, it looks like there'd be a couple there.
Well, let's hold, and I didn't know that. If they're there, let me read it and be official with it. I was going to read the other two. Whereas the week of April 11th through 17th, 2021 has been declared National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week with the intent to promote 911 awareness and to recognize the invaluable role of 911 operators and dispatchers have in the safety of our communities. And whereas emergencies can occur at any time of day or night that may require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is crucial to the protection of life and perseverance of property. And whereas the safety of our first responders is dependent on the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Douglas County 911 Emergency Communication Department. And whereas individual staffing our 911 center are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and whereas Douglas County 911 Emergency Communications Department dispatches for 15 regional agencies and receives over 500,000 calls each year, 24 hours per day, 365 days per year. And whereas our dispatchers and operators have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients while continuing to exhibit compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their jobs, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Douglas County that this board hereby declare the week of April 11th through April 17th, 2021 as National Public Health Safety Telecommunicators Week in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our community safe. Kathy, if you want to say something, you're on. And I see two staff here, so I'll hand it to you all first. And we'll see.
We just want to say thank you for the recognition. We do work.
I need you to state your name for the record.
Michelle Comstock.
Thanks.
We work really hard at 911, all of us. We're busy all the time, try to keep the citizens and the first responders safe, so we really appreciate the recognition.
Thank you all for your service. Kathy, do you want to say anything?
Hi, yes, Kathy Allen, Director, Douglas County 911. All I can say is that I'm so proud of my staff. They've done such an amazing job, especially during this continued trying time of COVID. They've all reported to work and just done an amazing job, and I'm so very proud. Thank you, guys.
Commissioner Friend.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Kathy and team, I was out there a couple weeks ago, and
Is this microphone on? Your mic's not on.
it's not. Can everybody hear me? I was out there a couple weeks ago, and
Press that green button, it may be hot. No, well, press it again.
Well,
All right, well,
real quick, sorry, Commissioner Brennan. Ron, does Mike need to Commissioner Boyd need to turn off his microphone? Is that what the problem is? Okay.
I don't think any of them are. I just want to say thanks. It was a very impressive tour. And there were things, I thought I knew a lot. There were things I just didn't understand. And I really appreciate it. Kathy and you guys, it was, it doesn't sound like it would be fascinating to take a tour, but it was. And especially the IT aspect of it. So thank you very much.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote in-house and roll call Zoom.
Commissioner Borgeson?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
And Commissioner Kavanaugh, how do you vote? Okay. Motion passes 7-0. Commissioners Borgeson and Morgan voting virtually, everybody else in person.
Okay, I'm gonna do item C and then I'll come back to B, resolution declaring April 2021 is National County Government Month and recognize the commitment of the National Association of Counties. That counties matter and that counties play an essential role in the well-being of our community. So it reads, whereas the nation's 3,069 counties serve more than 300 million Americans and provide essential services to create healthy, safe, vibrant, and economically resilient communities. And whereas since 1991, the month of April has been National County Government Month, an annual celebration of county government. And whereas America's counties provide public health, justice, safety, infrastructure, transportation, technology, environmental stewardship, and economic services. And whereas under the leadership of 2021 National Association of Counties President Gary Moore, NACO is demonstrating how counties matter, especially in supporting residents and businesses during the coronavirus pandemic. And whereas due to the pandemic, this year has presented new challenges to local government and the response from local health departments and associated agencies has been invaluable. And whereas throughout the pandemic, Douglas County has allocated millions of dollars to promote the well-being, health, and safety of residents through vaccine distribution and coordination, rental assistance, utility assistance, and community and small business grants, to name a few. Further, many county departments have significantly modified their operations to ensure the uninterrupted delivery of services to our community in the safest methods possible. And whereas Douglas County and all counties take pride in our responsibility to protect and enhance the health, welfare, and safety of residents in sensible and cost-effective ways. Now therefore be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners in Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board hereby declares the month of April 2021 as National County Government Month and encourages all county officials, employees, schools, and residents to learn about the important role the counties play in the well-being of our community and to participate in county government awareness appreciation. Is there a motion and a second?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Dr. Maureen Boyle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mike Boyle. Seeing nothing, Mary Ann, as an officer, do you want to say anything?
No, just that, again, I think the importance or the theme of counties matter really does play in what we've been dealing with during this pandemic. As counties, you know, we never shut down. We just learned how to do our business differently. And I am so proud of all of our staff throughout the county that has been able to do things differently and still provide quality, high quality services to our citizens. And so we'll celebrate them as always, but next month as recognizing it as County Government Awareness Month. So thank you.
Commissioner Mike Boyle.
I just want to take a moment to recognize the leadership of Commissioner Mary Ann Borgeson. I've kind of lost track of when her office as national president ends, and so maybe this is premature, maybe it's a little late, but I lost track. It was really an unusual year because there was none of the meetings that were held, but I feel like I share an office with Mary Ann because I'm next door, and I could hear I could hear her talking on national business all the time. And I'm very impressed with the way she represented Douglas County, but also the way that she led the national associations. I just want to bring that up, and maybe we'll have time to give her more recognition. But it was really a great education, officing next door to her, and also to participate in some of the things that she brought to us. It's really, really useful, and I think the way that Douglas County acted when the pandemic hit is remarkable, with Dr. Poor, her leadership, and all the other folks that we work with in the community. It was remarkable, and it is because county government does matter. So thanks a lot, and congratulations to you, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle.
There is a motion second, roll call Zoom, and vote in the chamber.
Commissioner Borgeson?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Okay, we need to roll call internally.
Yeah, I
too.
suppose we, yes.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Breen Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Commissioners Borgeson and Morgan voting virtually, all other commissioners voting in person.
We'll go to item B, resolution honoring former Nebraska State Senator Dwight Peterson upon his passing for his many contributions to the youth at Douglas County Youth Center and the entire community. So I'll ask them to come down while I'm reading, and then we'll turn it over. Whereas Douglas County has lost a champion for our young people with the recent passing of former Nebraska State Senator Dwight Peterson. And whereas Dwight Peterson was the first to provide drug and alcohol abuse education and counseling at the Douglas County Youth Center, serving in this role from 1993 to 2021. And whereas Dwight Peterson had a pure and genuine devotion and passion for working with young people, especially those in trouble, and working tirelessly to ensure that youth coming to the youth center will receive much needed love, generosity, kindness, and counsel. And whereas Dwight Peterson spent countless hours in jails, prisons, juvenile detention facilities, working with offenders and their families, and whereas Dwight Peterson generously provided a gift each Christmas and Easter to all youth at the youth center, and whereas the family of Dwight Peterson has graciously requested that memorials in Dwight's honor be given to the Douglas County Youth Center so that the youth can continue to be provided with a gift at each Christmas and Easter going forward. And whereas the positive impact Dwight Peterson had on youth and families and everyone that he served is far-reaching and will truly have a generational impact in our community. And whereas Dwight Peterson's passing away on March 16, 2021, and this board wishes to remember and honor Dwight for his outstanding contributions to Douglas County and to offer its deepest condolences to his family and friends. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners Douglas County that this board hereby honors Dwight Peterson for his many years of service to youth and families in Douglas County and further expresses his deepest and most sincere condolence to his family and friends upon his passing. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Mike Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Mike Friend. Brad.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Brad Alexander, Superintendent of Douglas County Youth Center. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this morning. I can't think of anyone that's more deserving of this than Dwight. Such an advocate for our youth. When I was putting together the resolution, it was amazing to me just how many years that he had spent at the youth center, and he was just such a wonderful example to everybody at the youth center in terms of literally how to treat people. The kind of relationship that we would like to see all of our staff develop with these young people. He was just a wonderful example of that. He gave me this plaque. There were so many things that I learned from Dwight, and Mark and I know are gonna miss, every morning, hearing that gravelly voice, "Good morning, boss." And that smile that just lit up a room, and yeah. But he loved the center, hate the sin, love the center, was something that he would always say. But he gave me this plaque, and it sits on my desk, and I just wanted to read this. Kids who never have any accountability for their actions will continue through life thinking nothing is their fault and that everything is owed to them. I mean, Dwight truly believed that kids needed to be held accountable, and he did that through his actions. When the kids left the youth center or an adult facility, the relationship with Dwight didn't end when they walked out that door. He was always available to them, and his desire was truly to see them be successful in life, just not while they're at the youth center or while they're at some facility. He really wanted to provide them with those tools that would help them to be successful going forward. And Michaela, thank you and your family so much for sharing Dwight with us at the youth center. I think you really did enjoy it there. I know everybody there truly loved him, and he will be missed. I think Mark had a couple of comments he'd like to say.
Mark LaFleur, Douglas County Youth Center. Dwight was special in that he could talk to anyone. And talking to children who are detained that may have been on drugs or alcohol, he found a way to reach them and pull them close. You can't fool children. They know if you care, and they know if you don't. Dwight cared. And you can tell by the number of children that came back as adults just to see him. He was my friend, and boy, I'm gonna miss him. Thank you.
Thank you. Michaela?
Good morning, Michaela Jackson. Today my role is daughter of Dwight Peterson. If my words could only speak the greatness my heart feels for my father, my hero, my very best friend. We are honored, my brother and sister and I and our families, that you are giving him this recognition today, because we wouldn't argue for a hot second that he is not worthy of such recognition. What an amazing man, and we will do our best to live our lives to reflect the amazing person he was. Thank you for all that you allowed him to be and continue to do so.
Commissioner Kavanaugh and Commissioner Boyd.
Thank you. Michaela, thank you. Your father was a great man and a good friend, and did so much for our community that it would take us a lot more time than we have here today to even scratch the surface of the lives he touched. But I had the honor of working with him over a long period of time, and he was a first-class public servant and dedicated his life to help alleviate the suffering of others. And no higher calling exists. He spent innumerable hours visiting the imprisoned and the sick and people struggling with all kinds of addictions and afflictions. And he did a great job as a state senator in Lincoln. I know that Mike shares this because we both worked with him on pretty much a daily basis when he was down there. Just a super guy, great sense of humor. I can't tell you how many times he cracked me up with his sense of humor. And we are honored to do this small token of our esteem. And I really appreciate you bringing the Mickey Mouse mask, because one of Dwight's hallmarks was his apparently inexhaustible supply of Mickey Mouse ties. I don't know how many he had. You must have a closet full. But it was just a small example of the man's humor and great heart. So thank you, and God bless.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, Michaela, I want to add my 2 cents too. I had some experience with his loving heart. I had a father tell me quite a few years ago now about the kind of treatment and the reaction that his son had from your father's care, who he said, this man is a saint, the way he got into my son's soul and really delivered. And, you know, he kept a true compass. In my book, he was constant. He was just and of course, always break into a smile whenever I saw him. And one of the funnier things, I ran into him a couple times over the years, and I ran into him at, I don't know, Target, one of the big box stores. And we were in a checkout line. I got behind him and I said, well, hey, Dwight, how are you doing? And he turned around in a loud voice. He said, well, I'm still in jail. Well, of course, all the other people turned their heads and looked, who in the world am I? Who's this fugitive, you know, behind me? And he did that on purpose. I'm still in jail, and everybody turns their head. Anyway, he was really terrific. And he always had a sparkle in his eye, kind of mischievous and, enjoying life and seeing all the good in people. So, I'm going to make a suggestion today that I did one time before. I was at and Chris Rogers is going to roll his eyes and go, oh no, not again. When I was speaking at the funeral service for Charles B. Washington, here we go. When I was speaking at the service for Charles B. Washington, who was a leader in Omaha's North Side, I said to the congregation that I was mayor at the time, that the North Omaha Library should be renamed Charles V. Washington Branch, and it was done. And they were very appreciative. It showed recognition and honor for a man that honored them, and they honored him. And then I got in the car, and then I called the head of the person of the library board, and I said, I've done something, I need your help. You need to rename that library, because I didn't have the authority. So today, what I want to suggest, I think there's going to be, I'm sure, in the new facility, a reconciliation room, a healing room, something that's appropriate. And I strongly suggest, I don't have the authority, but I strongly suggest that we look at naming that room the Dwight Peterson Room, including a smiling photo of him as engraved, and also the appropriate Minnie and Mickey Mouse characters, if we can get permission from Disney to use them. So anyway, I'm gonna battle for that, because he needs to be recognized all the time and remembered for who he was and what he brought, the love that he brought to our people. So thank you. Our children are grateful. Thank you. And I am too.
Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michaela, Commissioner Kavanaugh's right. I served with your dad for 6 years, and people have already mentioned his sense of humor. I was on the floor of the legislature at one point, and at various points, but at this particular time, I had spent maybe either 5, 10, or 15 minutes just going into a diatribe. My face was red. I was upset. I was borderline angry, and we're fighting, in the legislature, and it was a good fight. It wasn't bad, but I was on the borderline. So I get done and I start walking out toward the lobby, and Dwight goes, hey, come here. So I go, oh, this is a guy with institutional knowledge. I'm gonna get reamed. I mean, he's going to say, you need to calm down, you need to do this, blah, blah, blah. He goes, hey, your fly's unzipped. And I go, so I step back, and the redness probably got worse, but I go, is my fly really unzipped? So I looked down, and it wasn't, and he just cackled, and him and Ed Schrock and a few other people back there, and all my troubles just went away. I had other troubles after that, but for the moment, I don't know how to explain it other than to say, so a guy with a Mickey Mouse tie, I'm trying to be serious, and there's a guy with a Mickey Mouse tie telling me my fly's down. I've missed him, and I will continue to do so. I'm sorry, Michaela.
Commissioner Borgeson, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, if I can make it through this, Michaela, as well as I do, our daddies were pretty special to us. And not only for all of the things that have been said about what he's done for Douglas County, but what he's done for you and your family. He was such a family. I'm sure he's looking down with his beloved Poe right now. Really kind of embarrassed of this, but chuckling at the same time, and very proud of you as well. So again, I wish I could be there with you. I'm so sorry for the loss, and he definitely will be missed. We love you. We hope to stay in contact with you and your family.
Okay. Yes, nothing can be said, Michaela, but you will have your opportunity to not only honor him and on your work that you do every day at Beveridge, and I'm sure the students there feel it, and he'll continue to live through your work as constant and present. With that, there is a motion and a second. We roll calling Zoom and voting in chamber? Yes, we are.
Yep.
Please.
Commissioner Borgeson.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Commissioners Borgeson and Morgan voting virtually. All other commissioners voting in person.
Thank you all. And again, Go on item C, citizens' comments. This is an item, opportunity for citizens to comment on Board of Commissioner-related items not listed on the agenda. Again, Board of Commissioner-related items not listed on the agenda. Are there any citizens' comments?
Luis Jimenez, 3306 Birch Street. I have a question for the board. You're probably not going to be able to answer it, but I remember when the county board and the city council approved financing a mailer to the voters of Douglas County so they can request their early ballots, information on requesting your early ballot. And the commissioner of the election commission denied that request, and I haven't been able to find out what the reason was for that denial. I think Mike Boyle said that he may not have the authority to deny that request when the county and the city want to spend that money. I think it was a very important thing to do for the election commission because of the city elections being on an off year. By law, the Omaha elections happen after a presidential election. And there's, in certain elections, there isn't much participation. Every 2 years, there's a national election. For example, in 2020, or 2022, there's probably going to be less voters nationwide and in here in Nebraska than in 2020. The thing is, it's every 2 years. That's what people need to realize. It's not every 4 years that you vote. It's every 2 years. And so it's compounded in that lack of participation in the Omaha city elections because people aren't aware or they forget. Even people that I've talked to, because I am involved in campaigns, that it's Omaha elections. Well, I already talked to you like 4 years ago and didn't remember that they're municipal voters. So that's concerning to me. I'd like to know why Mr. Cruz did not send out a mailer. Perhaps he could still do that for the general election. If the commissioners have talked to the election commission about this, I'd like to know. Thank you.
Mike, you have to be like 1 point. We can't
that's okay.
debate with this. Okay.
I can't respond, right?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
Anyone else, citizens' comments? Again, seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. And item A is the COVID-19 update and COVID-19 vaccination plan update. I see you, Dr. Poor, and it's on you.
Good morning, commissioners. And thank you for letting me talk to you about and my first question, I think we all should ask ourselves, what are we seeing in our community in regards to spread of the virus? And I have to tell you, we are seeing some increases in our community. Our cases last week compared to the week before have increased by 371 cases. And that is significant. Some of it has to do with some late reporting from the state, but still not 371 cases. So we have seen an increase of 47% in our cases in the last week. We have also seen an increase in testing, which I think is encouraging. And we have seen 3,400 more tests being done last week for a 26% increase. Our positivity rate also has increased to 6.9% if we look at it test over test. So it's no surprise that if any of you read the New York Times this morning, again, Douglas County is in the high risk area. Our hospitalization are pretty flat at this time, and that's good news. We have at this time, as of last night, 70 inpatients with COVID-related illness in our Omaha hospitals. 29 of them are in the ICUs, and 11 of them are on ventilators. That's pretty similar to what we saw the previous week. We are reporting 682 deaths. Of that, 12 of them unfortunately occurred this month in March, which, however, is still a very low number compared to previous. But I want to close this portion of my presentation with some good news, and that is what I just heard on a Zoom call. And I appreciate so much that you let me talk to you on a Zoom call, because I am on another Zoom call, statewide Zoom call at the same time, and so I can balance it. And so I want to share the good news with you. On that Zoom call, it was just reported that in regards to long-term care facilities, over the last 2 weeks, they had 2 residents that were positive in long-term care and 31 staff. This is statewide. However, in the last week, they had 0 residents that tested positive and only 20 staff that tested positive. And most of those staff were unvaccinated. Isn't this amazing? I mean, it really shows you what can be done if we are diligent, if we vaccinate our vulnerable population. So I wanted to share that with you, because I feel that is really a good news story. Let me share with you now a little bit about our vaccination efforts that are going on. And up to now, we have provided 295,454 doses were administered in Douglas County. Of those, 244,694 were administered to Douglas County residents. 155,002 residents have received at least 1 dose. That is 36% of the Douglas County residents who are eligible. And 22.5% of our residents are fully vaccinated. And that is a shout out to our community. That compares to the statewide 20.9%. Besides one local region, Douglas County is the highest number of percentage residents that are vaccinated. The other region in Nebraska, local health department region, is Two Rivers, which is Kearney, Hastings, that area, and they are at 24%. So with the population that you think we have in our community, and to have 22.5% vaccinated, kudos to our residents. We are getting the vaccine out as quickly as it comes, but it does not only matter if it doesn't go into arms. We need people who want to be vaccinated. And from those vaccines that we have provided, 76% of that vaccine goes to the white, is administered in the white population. 6.4% of the vaccine has been administered to African American, 6% to Hispanic, and 3.3% to Asians. Last week, we heard that this week, actually, we received 15,070 doses of vaccine, and we are receiving 4,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson. We haven't received the Johnson & Johnson yet, but it should come any day. And the Johnson & Johnson is really this week for correction, homeless shelter, and other congregate living. So in total, the Douglas County Health Department, we have received 19,070 doses this week. In addition to it, you have heard the federal pharmacy programs. We don't have good visibility on what those doses are, but many of the Hy-Vee pharmacies and Kohl's pharmacies have received direct allocations from the federal government. The FQHCs are receiving direct allocation, and the community pharmacies. So it really has opened up what is available to the community as a whole. I also will tell you in regards to clinics, we have really tried to make sure that we can open up as much as possible. So we had a clinic at Girls Inc. on a Saturday, and we were able to provide 878 vaccines to individuals. It was fabulous. It was like a big celebration. It was music there. They were giving out raffle tickets, and it really filled my heart. I have to say that. It's something that I need to do when I'm feeling a little bit down. I think from now on, I'm going to go to a clinic and assist them and work with them. Today, we have a new day. We are opening our long-term vaccination clinic at 35th and L. That is going to be a steady clinic there. We are expecting 2,000 people there today. It looks very nice, very bright. I have to give a shout out to Jerry Leahy. He and his staff, they worked last night until 7 o'clock or so on. They have been there trying to spiff that space up a little bit because it has been a grocery store, and you can see it still on the floor sometime. So I'm really proud, and thanks to Jerry and thanks to my staff. They are just fabulous. So now we are able to do a little bit more streamlining, but we are also going to go into many more smaller clinics in North Omaha. And so we have one clinic planned at Abide, which is 43rd and Bedford. And we are potentially going to have a clinic there Tuesday and Wednesday next week. We are going to have one at Heartland Family Services at the Intergenerational Campus. And we're going to have Metro North is going to have the first drive-through. I think I may have already told you that. We're going to have another Girls Inc. clinic this Saturday. And then, of course, the FQHCs and the pharmacies now have all opened up. So a lot of opportunities. We are at 50 and above, but I would foresee that potentially by Saturday, we may go down even to 45. You have heard that the federal pharmacies are now allowed even to go down further to 18 and above. And so I do think we are seeing that age range change pretty quickly. That's kind of what I wanted to share with you this morning. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Cavanaugh and Commissioner Maureen Boyd.
Thank you for that report, Doctor. Real quick, in the ethnic breakout, you had 76% white, 6.4% black, 6% Hispanic, 3.3% Asian. Do you have a percentage on Native Americans?
I probably have, Commissioner, but it may be so low. If you hold on and ask me some other questions, I'm going to try to see if I can look it up.
Okay. I listened to a report and was made aware of a situation, and I don't know if we have capacity for this. I remember it being discussed earlier in the pandemic, where an individual in a household tests positive, and the rest of the household isn't, but the idea would be that the individual was able to quarantine themselves outside of the household. And other jurisdictions I know have secured like motel, hotel capacity to do that. Is anything like that happening in our community that you're aware of?
Yes, it is happening. We have actually quite a few hotel rooms at a hotel available for that, yes.
Okay, how would, I'm sorry.
That referral usually happens, Commissioner, when we do contact tracing. And then if those individuals are telling us that they have certain needs, then our navigators get involved. And that's when we find out and make those referrals to the hotels, yes.
So if an individual wanted to reach out and try to secure that service, who would they contact?
I think the best thing may be to call our information line, 444-3400.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As I understand the numbers on the doses available to Douglas County, that we have a direct 16,000 from the state. Is that right for this week?
We have 15,070 Pfizer and Moderna and 4,000 J&J. Okay. So altogether 19,070.
Okay. And are these other pharmacies receiving federal allocations in addition to that 19,000 number?
That's correct, yes. They are receiving, this is state allocation. The 19,070 comes from the state, and what the pharmacies are receiving is federal and has nothing to do with the state. It's in addition to.
And I think that we've discussed this in the past. You don't have an idea of what that number is per week, is that correct?
You know, it changes per week, and I can tell you the Hy-Vees have received this week, what I can see, 3,500. I am not quite sure what Kohl's has received, and I'm not sure what the FQHCs have received.
Okay, so we're over the 20,000, significantly over 20,000 a week.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
And does that federal allocation just continue on? Like we're getting increasing state allocations week by week. Is the federal allocation going up as well, as far as you can tell?
As far as I can tell, yes, it is every week. And we are hearing that new pharmacies can sign up into the program and to get a vaccine for it. So I would expect that number to increase, yes.
Right. You probably saw in the media the report that people are traveling around the state to receive vaccines that they might not be able to get here locally. And that, I think, I'm hearing this, and I think everybody is, a significantly growing population. But if I heard you correctly, there's very shortly going to be vaccines available here for anybody 18 and over. Is that right?
You know, the pharmacies already have it available of 18 and over. From the state allotment that we are getting, we are still going to be really diligent, I would say, to make sure that those at higher age or higher risk are the ones who are getting it. So at this time, it is 50. I would foresee potentially by the end of this week, it is 45, and then they'll go down very quickly. I'm expecting, and I think I have said it before, by the middle of April, we are going to be open up for everyone 18 and above.
So that final group of individuals younger than 18, what happens to that category?
Yes, that's a good question. You know, trials are underway by Pfizer and Moderna for individuals, for young people 12 years and above. And those trials, the expectation is that those trials will be done by the end of summer. So depending on what those results are going to show, you could actually see potential vaccination by fall for those 12 and above. Now, the trials for youngers below 12 years of age, that's starting. They are starting to recruit for those trials. I would not foresee those individuals to be able to be vaccinated before 2022.
Thank you.
Commissioner Maureen Boyle.
So, Commissioner, can I just say one more thing to Commissioner Kavanaugh's question in regards to Native American? Okay. It is 0.4% of our vaccines have been given to Native Americans.
Thank you, Doctor.
Commissioner Maureen Boyle.
Hello. First and foremost, I just want to say to Dr. Ford, to have the second most number of vaccines in the state in our county by percentage, that is an amazing undertaking, a huge accomplishment, and I really think your leadership needs to be acknowledged for that. This is, we are very fortunate to have you in this position to do that. That's just an incredible accomplishment, and we appreciate your leadership on that. And then secondly, I was just wondering, of the numbers of fully vaccinated citizens in Douglas County, do those include those that were vaccinated through the federal allocation program?
Yes, they do, because even the pharmacies, they have to report the vaccines that they have been given, and it is reported into the Nebraska immunization registry. So it does include all of them, yes.
Very good. And then just a couple like bullet point questions too. Do we have, you mentioned a lot of the allocations or a lot of the clinics opening up in North Omaha. Do we have a similar effort in South Omaha, since it seems that the Latino population is lagging here?
You know, we have really some good efforts going on in South Omaha. And I just talked to Ben Salazar this morning at 8 o'clock, and I said, I'm so proud of him. He's doing a lot of outreach in the Hispanic population. And right now, really focusing on the clinic on 35th and L, because that's really kind of in the heart where people work and so on. There are big signs on there. So he's going to advertise it in the supermercados in South Omaha. And he's really probably going to try to do something even outside. So yeah, and we used to have, remember, we are probably going to close that down, the Kroc Center, as a smaller facility, but really want to focus now all on 35th and L, because that is going to be open 9 to 4 for Tuesday and Wednesday, 11 to 6 on Thursday, so that and then the addition, what we are looking at with the state, as we are doing in North Omaha with the drive-through side, I thought it would be nice to also have a drive-through side at the South Metro campus, especially on Saturday and Sunday, where people could go to.
Very good, very good. It seems like on the north side, a lot of the smaller, like the churches got very involved. And I don't know if you see that similarly on the south side, if you have small group organizations that really are gung-ho, like Girls Inc. They really stepped up and made it a party. I mean, there has to be something similar to do on the south side. I guess my next questions just have to do with, you alluded to it a little bit, like mobile clinics. Are we doing anything with mobile clinics at this point?
Yes, we are. We actually are. We always had a team from the diabetes van that goes out and does mobile clinics. But we are now also from the health department, we are trying to form a strike team that then goes to different clinics. And actually, NOAA also, North Omaha Alliance on Health, they are also wanting to do some going to churches and do some drive-throughs with small mobile vans. So I do think you are seeing that now, that we are kind of more stabilized. You are seeing many of these smaller organizations or strike teams going out. And especially when we have J&J, you know, to have strike teams or mobile teams go out, J&J is really the best vaccine you can have, because you don't have to go back and try to find the people again. But you give one shot and they are done. They don't need to worry about it anymore. So I'm really happy that we are getting more J&J.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for everything you do. You've really brought us to where we're getting there because of your leadership. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mike Boyle.
Yes, and I'll follow up immediately. I totally agree with Dr. Boyle. She's correct in pointing out that it's your leadership that got us to this point, which is a remarkable point. For us to be in that position statewide is really an accomplishment, and makes me smile like you're smiling. It's just really terrific. That was hard work, and it paid off, and what a wonderful surprise for you to tell us this morning. I just want to mention a couple of things. You know, I listened to national television. I listened to Dr. Walensky this morning, the head of the CDC, who talked about don't stop now, and so did the president, said, you know, wear a mask, wash your hands, observe the distance. We're so close, let's not blow this and have another outburst. Many of the countries in Europe are on total shutdown because of what's happened. So we need to be on guard and be reasonable and be smart. And part of that is, of course, following through and getting the shots. And I really appreciate what you've done in South Omaha, particularly with having Ben Salazar working. I talked to him 3 times yesterday, and Ben is going to be passing out flyers. He's got people to help at 3 major Hispanic grocery stores, Benton Street and so forth in South Omaha, further deep in South Omaha, and telling people in English and Spanish on this flyer where to go to get a shot, what the hours are, the whole deal. And so it's really terrific that you've embraced a leader like Ben Salazar and his skills. He has a lot to offer, and it sounds to me like he's delivering as usual. Also, another shout out I think is due to the head of our the governing board of the health department, led by Chris Rogers too. I think Chris has been a real important part of this whole project. Positive, you're surrounded by positive people who support you, which is really, really important. And you've done a great job. On behalf of Mary Ann Borgeson, I want to ask a question about how are things going in places like Valley and Waterloo and Bennington? Are they surveyed by a mobile unit, or how's that going out further west and north?
So we have the 144th and Millard, and but we are now talking to the fire departments out in Valley if we actually could set up some mobile units out there, because I'm hearing that people would like to have some options out there too. So we are looking into that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And finally, I want to ask, what is if someone wants to sign up? So I know you gave the phone number, the 444-3400. Is that the correct number to sign up if you don't have internet service?
That is the correct number, yes. And we are increasing that personnel by another 10 people today, because that phone line is going crazy.
That's wonderful. And then if they want to do it online, what's the address? Is it Douglas County Health Department or something?
Correct. It's douglascountyhealth.com, and you can go on that website, and there is a click on there and make an appointment.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again for your leadership, and congratulations on that spectacular percentage. You have the smile of a really great competitor, which I love it. It's a good way to, and you're winning. Thanks, Doctor.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing internal. Mary Ann, Commissioner Borgeson.
Well, Commissioner Boyle has been reading my mind this morning, because I actually was going to ask that same question about our western part of the county, which Dr. Poor isn't surprised asking about it. But I have heard a written request from folks that would like to have the same consideration clinics out in that part of the county. And so I'm glad that we're having conversations now, because again, I think it's important we reach the entire county.
Exactly.
And you saw Saturday, the community pharmacy had the clinic at Embassy Suites in La Vista, and that was a collaboration between our department and Sarpy County Health Department. But I also thought it was important because it really made it a little bit easier for individuals from Valley and Gretna and everybody to come there. And I think while they are going to serve second doses in about 3 weeks.
All right, that's great.
Okay. Not seeing anything. Thank you, Dr. Poor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Poor.
We'll go to item B and an update on the match rental mortgage assistance program, funded from the $2 million from Douglas County. Is somebody in chamber or somebody online?
Randy McCoy's online.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for inviting me back this morning. I appreciate it. Things are going well with the rental assistance program. Are we able to look at the PowerPoint?
somebody's handing something out,
Randy,
and
I
I think
have
she's
hard
working with
copies on our end. Do you want to share it from your side?
Yeah, I sure can.
Okay.
Let me get to that. The magic of Zoom and all that, I guess. All right, 48 clicks later, sorry about that. So the Douglas County Rural Assistance Program has been in full swing for about a month now. Just a quick update on sort of the history and in talking with Commissioners Boyle and Borgeson and others over the last month. I mean, the intent was for Douglas County to be able to ensure that rental assistance was available between the period when the CARES Act funds ended with Douglas County General Assistance at the end of 2020 and when the new Treasury funds were available, and that was appropriated in December of last year by Congress. And so to make sure that there were funds available within the community to help people with rent and mortgage so that they didn't lose their housing during the middle of the pandemic. I'm going to kind of skip this slide for just a second, but we will come back to it. This is the number of applications approved over the last 3 weeks. And as you can see, our hope and goal was that, there would be a little bit of a slower ramp up period, and then it would go up drastically. And we have seen that. This is through last week. This week, we are continuing to process applications. Right now, there are about 500 applications that are being processed, which means that they are in different states of the application process. And so someone makes initial contact with us. We collect their initial information, provide them a link to the full assessment. They complete that assessment. We then contact them if there are any questions or any other documents that we need, contact the landlords, our property managers to verify information, to get a specific amount of money that is owed in back rent and things like that, and then close the circle and initiate payments. We will begin transitioning to the City of Omaha Rental Assistance Program. It is that federal Treasury money that we were hoping that the Douglas County funds would fill the gap in very shortly, and we'll circle back to that in just one moment. The amount of assistance that has been provided through last week is just over $1 million, so just over half of the $2 million that was allocated within the first 3 weeks has been dispersed. We have about just under $1 million remaining. The average cost through the first 3 weeks has been about $3,200, $3,166 per household. One of the things that we have seen, especially last week, is a higher than normal number of households coming in that have significant arrearages. I saw a couple last week that people were going back 8 months or more, and for some of those bills were quite significant. And it is driving up the average cost. And it is not just in the Douglas County Assistance Program, but other rental assistance funds that we are using. I mentioned just a second ago that there's about 500 applications that we are processing. It is our firm belief that the pending applications, if you multiply it kind of by that average cost, is well more than the just under $1 million that remains. And what we will do is begin that transition this week, actually, to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or ERAP funds provided to the city. The future build out of that rental assistance is that we will spend down the balance of the Douglas County rental assistance. We will begin the transition to the City of Omaha rental assistance. It will go public on the 5th, so next Monday. The links will be up on our website. Applications will be made through the website that you have all heard about before, the matchconnect.org. You will also be able to do it by phone. or in person at select locations. A phone bank is being set up right now that will go live on the 5th, so people can call in, they can ask questions. If they don't have access to the internet or a computer, they can do the application on the phone. We are working with the city and a marketing company to do a marketing plan around the rental assistance program funds. And right now, if you look at matchconnect.org, what it would tell you is that Douglas County that we're not taking any more applications for the Douglas County rental assistance because we're positive that the 500 that we have in process will expend the rest of the funds. And then what we will do is for the rest of those 500, so if we run out of funds, we'll begin to transition them to the treasury funds through the city so that there's no interruption. They're not going to have to do anything additional. It'll just be transitioning those applications into the ERAP, collecting the documentation that is necessary for that. And then just processing it just like they would. So they shouldn't notice any significant changes from one process to the other. The other tweak, I suppose, to the ERAP program is that property managers, landlords can apply directly. The one thing that we're going to ask of them beginning next week is they would all have to have tenants' approval to submit an application on their behalf. And there will be a form that will go up along with the tenant-based assessment on the 5th for landlords and property owners to get that form, have their tenants sign it so that they can begin the application process on their behalf. And that is, by Treasury's guidance, a requirement for property managers and owners to get that signed. So all in all, it is going well. The money is being used very rapidly. I know that as of last Friday, we had distributed just over $1.8 million during the month of March. The bulk of that, just over $1 million, being the Douglas County rental assistance, and about $800,000 from other private sources. And if you have any questions, I am
Commissioner
quite happy.
Thank you for that, Mr. McCoy. That's great news. The fact that you're going to run through the $2 million that was allocated is exactly, what we wanted, and so good for you. If I understand you correctly, you're not currently taking applications for the remaining 900,000, but you will take applications and keep them, and then when the city's program comes in, those applications will be done as well there. Is that right?
Yes, Commissioner Boyle. The 500 that we have that are currently in one state or another of the application verification process, it is our belief that we'll fully expend the almost $1 million that's left in the Douglas County assistance. And then any of those that can't get assistance through the Douglas County funds, we would begin that transition process to the City of Omaha funds so that they all have access to rental assistance.
That's great. The problem that we're encountering, and you might have heard this if you were on with Dr. Poor's presentation a moment ago, is people are still experiencing evictions, incredibly enough, for failure to pay rent. And so what we're concerned about is that population being evicted and having no place to go. So homelessness is a public health threat during the pandemic. And so from a public health point of view, it's important for us to make sure that people don't go homeless. Do you have the capacity to deal with those people who have been evicted for whatever reason, but particularly failure to pay rent, and don't have a place to go?
There is capacity within the existing shelter system currently. We have worked very hard over the last year in conjunction with Douglas County, with UNMC and others to do a few things. One is to make sure that supporting the shelters and their efforts to be able to social distance, to be able to have testing, vaccination, all those kinds of procedures that they would need to keep shelters as safe as possible. Part of that also was the winter planning project that was implemented with a number of nonprofits and also with the city, where we were providing non-congregate sheltering in hotels. It was also done by Douglas County Health Department in 2020, and we kind of picked it up starting in 2021. So there were places available in hotels in the community for individuals who were either older, at higher risk of being in shelter based on health conditions, or if there weren't spaces available in shelter for them. And so just as an example, maybe a family with 2 or 3 kids, 5 or 6 people in the household, but there weren't enough shelter spaces for them on the day that they needed shelter. That was someone who may end up in a non-congregate shelter. So there is some of that capacity. The other thing I would mention is that the city, through some of the CARES funding that they receive through the Emergency Solutions Grant and through other private philanthropy funds, we do have some rehousing or rapid rehousing money available. And so if a household does become homeless and may have to go to a shelter or one of the non-congregate hotels, there is the opportunity to help them out with initial deposits, application fees, first month's rent, things like that, to help them get back into housing as quickly as possible. The big caveat there, of course, is finding affordable housing or available housing for them to go to, but it's just an additional kind of backstop to help with that pressure.
Right. So, here's a scenario, and I wonder if these people can turn to you at the metro area continuum of care for the homeless for help. If I get evicted for any reason, but certainly for failure to pay rent, and then I'm not working because of COVID, I've been laid off or furloughed or whatever, and yet I have a little bit of resources to get another apartment. But when I go to the new landlord, he runs my record and sees that I've been evicted, and he has applicants from people who haven't been evicted, and so he obviously defaults for people who have not an eviction record. People like that, can they turn to you at Match for assistance?
Yes, they certainly could. We would probably, if I got that phone call, I would refer those individuals to one of our partner agencies who is better versed than personally I am at it, or one of our staff would help them identify other possible places that they could rent from. But that, you're right, Commissioner, that is one of those gaps that exists within the community and the system. Not just in Douglas County and Omaha, but one of those things across the country that if you have an eviction on your record, it becomes more and more difficult to find the next place to live, especially in tight housing markets.
Right. So people in that position could reach out to you at your 402-957-1747 number.
We can come back. Hold
Yes,
on.
sir.
Hold on that. We can come back to it, but time's on that, Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, what is the best telephone number to reach you, Randy?
For the assistance program?
Yes, that Commissioner Kavanaugh was just talking about, 402.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the 402.
You can give it to us later if you don't have it, right?
Yeah, it should be on the handout.
Okay, good deal.
That was distributed, sir.
Okay, that's good. I'll get that put together. I've got a few comments I want to make. First of all, I just want to say that you are a very important partner of ours. You're one of the guys on the ground who effectively delivers services and fulfills the needs. That's the function of county government, is to meet the needs of those people who are really in trouble, and you're delivering them for us. And I want to thank you very much for what you do day in and day out, effectively taking care of those problems. I also want to mention that long-term, what I would like to do, particularly because there's such a shortage of affordable housing, you find that many times we can put together programs. I used to be on the board of Holy Name Housing Corporation, and they have put together a rent-to-own program. And in all the years, I think they're approaching over 25 years of service now to the North Omaha community primarily, very far west as well. But they have put together this counseling program for credit and so forth, and they get people in homes, and they take their rent and they save it, and they turn around and let them use it for a down payment. And it's an effective program to get people into home ownership, which is one of the great stabilizers of families and people. When they have a home that they own, the pride and all the rest of it that comes with it. And it also gives them a way out of this rental trap that they get in, and they can't afford to make the rent, and they become a victim of eviction. And this is going to be a confession, but I used to represent the landlords, so I'm fully aware. I used to do evictions by the dozen, and it was always very painful for me to see what was going on, but lawyers do things sometimes that are painful, and that's what I did. So that was my confession. So I'm looking for forgiveness sometime. Anyway, but poverty is such a cause of so many things that are wrong in our community. When after World War II, there was a program to get housing for people coming home from the service. And of course, the way things were in the late 40s and early 50s, it was clearly discriminatory that did not even allow the black people or the people of brown or any of the other colors that aren't white to have a chance to get into those neighborhoods. It was simply redlined. And so we need to figure out a way to start serving those people specially, just like the white people in my ethnic group. All of us who were able to do things because of our color, we need to really focus on trying to do that, I think, for people of color. And one of the ways we might be able to do some of this rent-to-own program, I think, I'm really high on it, and I want to talk to you and about it, but is work with Holy Name Housing and work with them on how they do things, and don't necessarily duplicate what they do. Work with NIFA, the Nebraska Investment Finance Authority, work with Omaha 100, and try to get this all, turned around. And frankly, I ran in, because of my work with landlords, I've run into landlords who want out. They want out. And I know a man who's pretty close to 80, who's pretty tired of trying to maintain these homes. His wife just died not too long ago, and I think he's ready to sell. We need to figure out how to get those homes in the hands of the people who are living there, the renters. We need to figure out a way to get them into affordable housing. So that's really what I wanted to say to you, and you're such an important partner that I think you're the one I want to talk to and listen to about how we could get this done, because I think it could make a terrific and big difference. Years ago, we had a program. I was listening in the budget to the Department of Condemnation, and then I was listening to housing. And they were, one department bragged about how many houses they tore down, and the next one I was listening to for budget purposes was how many homes they built. So I said, you two need to get together. And they did, and they started to save homes, and we started selling houses, believe it or not, for $1. We would sell them for $1, and we had a lottery. And it worked. I had one of the homeowners who won that first lottery come to me several years later and tell me that it was the first time he had ever slept in a bed. A family of 5 was sleeping in a car. So these changes can happen if we get creative and recognize our responsibility to others, and that's what we're doing. So anyway, I want to say thank you for your work, and I'll be in touch with you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. You're doing a great job, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate that.
Commissioner Kavanaugh, do you want to continue?
Yes, Mr. McCoy, I think that number to contact you is 402-957-1747, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So
I would also say that beginning on Monday, there will be a phone bank that people can contact, and that number will come out. People won't be surprised when they see it, but people can reach out to it as well, not only to ask questions about the assistance program, but also if they don't have access to computers or internet, to be able to start the application process.
that's very important. Is this going to be a phone bank run by Match, or who's going to be in charge of that?
It will be a subcontractor. So we are subcontracting with them to operate the phone bank as part of that Treasury-funded rental assistance program.
Can you make sure that we get that information so that we can put it on the Douglas County website so that people can check that number with us as well?
Yes, sir. I know that my staff, and I don't remember exactly who at Douglas County, but we have had some conversations about being able to cross-link everything. So once the Douglas County rental assistance program starts for that western part of the county outside of specifically Omaha, we'll link that on our website. So it'll say, if you need rental assistance, but you don't live in the city limits of Omaha, here's where you apply. We would like for them to cross-link it to ours. So if you do live within the city limits, and definitely on the county and city's web pages as well, sir.
Thank you. That's great. And thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing internal, seeing nothing online. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going on to item C, and it's an update from the Omaha Dollar Energy on the utility assistance program. It is administering with the $2 million in fund provided by Douglas County. Is that somebody else online? I don't see anybody in the chamber.
Lindsay from Dollar General.
Okay. Lindsay.
Good morning. Yep, sorry, good morning, I'm here. Do I need to share my screen, or does everyone have a copy of the PowerPoint?
We have hard copies if you want to share your screen, Lindsay.
Okay, I don't, I'll have to log into a different, to share, but if it's okay, if you guys have hard copies, can I just go on without sharing?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we are currently, Dollar Energy Fund is currently managing a new program for OPPD and MUD, a new energy assistance program called the COVID-19 Global Pandemic Utility Assistance Program. We began on Monday, February 22nd, and within a few days, we had thousands and thousands of applications. So just a quick update on the program. The maximum grant is $1,000. It's $500 for OPPD and $500 for MUD. Customers can apply at a local community-based organization or online using the Dollar Energy Fund My App portal. On to the next slide, our current guidelines that the customer had to have been negatively affected by COVID-19. The applicant is listed as the customer of record for the utility services being provided. The applicant or a member of the household for which they are applying is a citizen or qualified alien of the United States. The income must be at or below the 300% of federal income poverty guidelines, and they must have an inability to pay their utilities due to COVID-19. On to the next slide. Here's just an update on our statistics. For MUD, this was as of yesterday. We have 610 applications in the pre-screen, which means applications did not get past the pre-screen. They were denied due to be either non-resident of Douglas County or their income was over the 300% of the FPIG. The income, waiting for income is 0, and in progress is 3. Now, I wanted to let you know why these numbers are so low. We shut down the program after a few weeks as we did not want to overspend. We had so many applications submitted that we shut down the intake application portal because we did not want to overspend. Now that we are all caught up, we're going to be reopening that portal for applications starting today. So we currently have 2,374 applications completed for MUD, a total of 1,280 grants, which is $640,000 granted so far. Moving on to the next slide, OPPD statistics as of yesterday, we had 508 that did not make it out of the pre-screen. We have 0 waiting for income documentation and 0 in progress. We had 2,321 total applications. We have granted 1,200, I have this number wrong. It's either 2,800 and 1,287, I believe. For a total dollars granted is $639,500. So again, we have a little bit left for each OPPD and MUD, and we'll be reopening the program as of today.
That it, Liz?
That's all I got.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. And Lindsay, just for the record, I don't think you identified yourself. You just appear as Lindsay on our screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lindsay Mulvihill with Dollar Energy Fund.
Thanks. Listen, thanks for this. It's great. I got a question on the application pause that you mentioned. What date did that occur?
That we shut down. I'm not exactly sure of the date. I know it was about 2 to 3 weeks past, and I know we shut down OPPD before we shut down MUD, but I can get you those dates.
Okay. And I understand your concern about running through the allocated amount. Here's my concern, that we have people who are without utilities. And so maybe going forward, if you anticipate that that's going to happen, and you're good at this, come back to us and we can see about some additional funding so that nobody is trying to get their utilities assistance and they find that the portal's closed. I mean, if we knew that, I think that we would have, a concern that we need to do something to make sure that the portal is not closed. Do you understand?
We do, but also keep in mind that both of the energy assistance programs are also running concurrently with OPPD and MUD. So yes, we shut down this program for a short amount of time, but the other program was also running as well. So they could apply through the energy assistance program that OPPD and MUD are already running.
And that's good to know. So there was a fallback. I mean, people weren't actually falling through the floor on this and getting their utilities shut off, right? Okay.
Correct.
I'm looking at the PowerPoint, and thank you for this. It's right on point. The one thing that I would say that maybe we should add here is, what's the phone number that they can call for utilities assistance?
Well, they're not going to call a phone number, but there's a designated email address, and that's how we've been running the program since the beginning.
Yeah. We might think going forward about a phone number. What is the email address?
Hold on. I can put that in the chat. Will that work?
Yeah. And if you get it, during the course of this thing, just come back because we're being broadcast, and so it's a matter of trying to get it out to as many people as possible. And as we mentioned with the match folks and the rent assistance thing, it's important that everything that we have is on our website as well. So please be sensitive to that and share everything that you have with the Douglas County website, contact numbers and all of that. And this report's fine as well, just to give people an idea of the progress that we're making. So thank you. Do you anticipate going forward that the $2 million will be expended at some date in the near future?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have an idea when that will be?
I don't, but I don't think it's going to last very long. With the sheer amount of applications that we received right off the bat, I think in the first week we had over 2,000 applications for each OPPD and MUD. So I believe it's only going to take a matter of a couple more weeks.
Okay, so there should be some consideration for the ongoing need for utilities assistance during the pandemic. Is that fair?
I would, yes.
Okay. Thanks a lot, and thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mike Boyle.
Yes, Lindsay, I have a couple of questions on the OPPD statistics as of March 29th, 2021. Right below that is a pre-screening of 508. And it says this group of people did not get past the pre-screening, and they were denied. Where do they go for help? Where can they go when they're turned down for this? Is there any place left?
Yes, so like I said, OPPD and MUD currently have a hardship program that has been running for over a year now. It's their energy assistance program, and that's running concurrently with with a different set of guidelines.
Okay,
So that's not necessarily COVID related. They don't have to show a COVID impact.
Okay, that's great. And what I was wondering too, when Commissioner Kavanaugh asked you about a phone number, tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't 211 about as good as it gets to refer people to get help?
They can, sure, yeah, absolutely.
So if someone is in this box, in this problem, they could call 211, and 211 should be able to tell them how to dial a call by phone or to use the internet. I believe that'd be reasonable, isn't it? Do you think?
Yeah, right. So, so you can apply at a community-based organization. We have several agencies located in Douglas County where customers can go in person to apply for assistance, and they can also do it through our MyApp portal, which is they can do it from their smartphone, tablet, or computer.
And you know, the difficulty is that a lot of the people have never done this before. I remember years ago, I was on the Board of Equalization, and I was listening to people appealing their increase on property taxes, and a well-dressed man was sitting in front of me, and he was in a nice neighborhood, nice home, the whole deal, and he wanted a reduction that was pretty substantial. And finally, he leaned over to me and he said, "I'm in real trouble. I've got 4 kids, and my wife and I have had to sell all the furniture." And so their whole house was absolutely vacant because of their financial hardship. And they're trying to figure out how to crawl out of the hole they were in. So many of these people don't appear to be having trouble. Many of these people have never done this before. And so that's why I think, you know, real clear in the direction on calling 211 or someone to get them moving would be a really good solution. So, but I really want to thank you for your work too. I totally agree. You know, this is a really excellent program, and I appreciate your leadership as well. We are really, really fortunate in Douglas County to have people like you and organizations that you represent helping us help people. That's our job. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
So I just have a quick question too. So as far as folks getting assistance, are these people do they have to initiate the process, or is it something where, say, there's an organization that understands that their population or those they serve are going to have trouble, that they kind of seek out this help for them?
So our partnership with the community-based organizations in your service territory, we chose organizations that are already offering a service to your community. So very often it's not just utility assistance that somebody is in need for. So we partner with local agencies that, you know, someone may go in for, you know, rent assistance or childcare assistance or food assistance. And those agencies are going to be the ones that ask, oh, if you're in need of this, do you also need help with your utility bills? So yeah, those are the community-based organizations in your service territory, which we have an agency finder link that you can type in your zip code very easily to find the closest agency. So if you need to walk or take public transportation, it'll be very easy to receive this assistance.
Great, good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Leslie, I see nothing else. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Borgeson.
So I just wanted, it would go for, just like with match, it would also for the utilities, that the transition over to the city dollars was for utilities as well as rent. Oh, the gap has been filled, and they'll transition over as well with utilities as they will rent.
Okay. Anything to close, Lindsay?
That's all I have. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go on now to item 6, public hearing. Provide additional budget dollars for salary adjustments account and transfer budget dollars that are set aside in salary adjustments account for future salary increases. The increased budgets are for election commission, public properties, risk insurance, district court, and .com, and to provide additional budget dollars for budget increases with revenue offsets for county administration, sheriff's office, the emergency management. Joe.
Mr. Chair, are we opening the public hearing?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Public hearing is open.
Yes, Commissioners. Twice a year we do budget supplements in March and May. This is the bigger one in March, and the reason primarily that's the bigger one is that this is when we do the salary adjustment account. In the budget, we put $2 million for salary adjustment, and this year it looks like we're going to go a little over that, so we're asking for another $200,000 to go to the salary adjustment account, which would make that account $2.2 million. And the reason, if you look at this chart, you can see where the salary adjustments are going, and the big component is the general fund. And the reason we went over is there was a settlement out with the sheriff's office, and involved in that settlement, it settled like a year after the contract expired because there was a lawsuit and other issues. So we wound up having to pay about $550,000 in retroactive salaries. And that's what drove the money over the $2 million that we had budgeted. And I've said this before, that when we let these contracts drag out, they always get messy because the expense occurs in a year where it wasn't really incurred. These were retroactive and they went back a year. So, but there's, usually some sort of circumstances that cause the delay, why we can't get those contracts settled on a more timely basis. So anyway, that's it for the salary adjustment piece, and you can see where it's going. And all these salary adjustments have been previously approved by the commissioners in either labor contracts or the salary adjustments that are approved usually in November, December, that will take effect on January 1st of calendar years. So, any questions on the salary adjustment piece?
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, Joe, when these figures come in, I'm assuming that, for example, the health center tells you why they need $71,000 more.
Well, this one is just salaries. This is to fund, this is the amount of their salaries go up, and that clicks in usually on January 1st. And so that's the amount they need added to their budget to cover that increase in salaries between now and June 30th.
Okay, so what department is general fund?
It's about 20 different departments. It's the sheriff, it's corrections, it's county administration. I mean, it's everybody that's in the general fund, which is the vast majority of the county departments.
Joe, can I ask, I know the salaries are, they're negotiated and we agree to pay them, so we really don't beat up the departments when these things occur for their department. They didn't have anything to do with it, really. The leadership didn't. So is there something we can do that could better budget these, or is it possible? I know you talked about trying to get the contracts done earlier, but that's something that is beyond our control many times. But all of these salary things I understand and I support. I guess it's later in this document we talk about maybe better planning or better budgeting, but
yeah, and we always take this into account. And even in the state budgeting process, that's why this salary adjustment account exists, that we usually put anywhere from $1.5 million to $2 million in. And really the only time we ever go over that is when we have these big retroactive payments.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's really kind of factored into the budgeting process.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to, I guess I'll come back and ask about the budget adjustments.
Yeah, we can go through that as soon as, if there's no other questions on the salary adjustment.
Okay, seeing no questions here, are there any questions in the public? Again, are there any questions in the public? Okay, we will close the public hearing.
No, well, I mean, the second piece.
You got, okay, sorry. We'll
We
keep
have
the
to
public
do this
hearing.
other page. These are the, non-salary budget adjustments in the budget supplement. And I have them listed here. from the various departments who came to us and requested a supplement to their budgets. So we can go down those. The first is district court, and these are grand jury expenses that they have incurred. And those expenses have gotten higher because of the pandemic in terms of having to put the grand jurors in special places. And, we are utilizing the building across the street, the old Omaha Housing Authority. We put some money into that, so that's being able to use for jurors. But in total, the net incremental amount that district court is requesting is $150,000. The biggest component of this $6.2 million piece is for county administration, and this was the federal grant award for $4.3 million that we received, and that's what we are using to fund the rental assistance program that we're working out with COPE. That was funded this week, the first piece. COPE received $2.1 million, and I talked to them, and they are anticipating that they will go live with their site and start processing applications by the middle of April. And so that one is just, we have to increase our budget by the $4.3 million that we received. Again, the city received $22 million from this same grant, but ours is only to be used in areas outside the city limits of Omaha, and that's why we're working with COPE to really be able to cover western Douglas County. So that's what the big amount is about. .com, $350,000. This really relates to their capital spending. That .com, half of this is because on the Oracle system, the current version we're running is not going to be supported after January 1st of this year, so we have to do some upgrades. And so this is to cover those expenses of getting that up, tested, and running. And then there's also money in there for certain software upgrades for programs like Java, and also for their cybersecurity. So that's what the .com money does. The sheriff, this is grant funded, and it's a Cloverdale grant for new equipment for the crime lab, $253,000. The election commissioner has asked for money for two reasons. He's got like 4 petitions that they're in the process of verifying. That takes time. And also they increased the pay rate of temporary employees that will be needed to run the city primary and general election. So that's the election commissioner. Emergency management had a grant for additional equipment, about $19,000. Public properties, when we had that cold stretch in February, it really sent the utility expenses, much higher than expected. So there's $250,000 there for public properties driven by utility expenses. And risk insurance, there's $250,000, and those are the amount of lawsuits that we've been settling this year have been higher than expected, so we needed some additional funds to put into that so that we can make payment in the settlement of those lawsuits. So if you take those amounts plus the $200,000 for salary adjustment, the total budget adjustments we're asking for is about $6.2 million. And of that, $4.8 million is being reimbursed. We have offsetting revenue to do that. So the incremental amount of expenditures that aren't being reimbursed are $1.4 million, which, given our budget is $430 million, represents less than 0.5% of our budget that we're asking to supplement. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioner Friend, then Commissioner Mike Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, so Joe, let's just, what would happen if the departments or the entities, just out of curiosity, and we can expound a little bit on this later when you and I get a chance to visit, but what happens if the department of, or the entity later, this isn't zero, based budgeting, so what happens if they later realize that the adjusted amount that we actually implement here was either not needed or something changed within a 4 or 5 month period? So in other words, let's say the election commissioner gets to a certain point 6 months from now and they said, well, we only needed 250K. Or, or .com says we didn't need any of the amount, as it turns out. What happens then? What happens to that fund? Does it get pushed back into our general
the money will come back to the general fund. It won't be expended, because when we give these supplements, we always make clear to the departments receiving a supplement that if the money doesn't get spent, they're not allowed to encumber that money and stash it.
Okay.
It's an amount that has to
They
be
would
spent
never.
this
They
year.
would never do that. Okay. All right. We'll talk offline too, Joe. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Mike Boyle.
Thank you. Joe, I wanted to ask you about the district court grand jury expenses. Most of that expense, are we getting any of that expense from the city reimbursed? Is that a no?
Actually, Doug Johnson is here from district court,
Okay.
and I will let him talk to the specifics of that.
Mr. Johnson, how are you?
Good morning. Doug Johnson, District Court Administrator. Sorry, no, there's no reimbursement from the city.
Okay,
We've
the
never
reason
been-
that I ask is that correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say almost all of the 15 or so cases that were reviewed occurred inside the city with the city police involved, not us. It wasn't the
Correct.
Douglas County Sheriff. It was OPD, wasn't it? Most cases.
I believe so, yes.
Well, that's something I think we ought to pursue, because I know that we have the responsibility for the grand jury investigation. That started when I was in the mayor's office because of a death that was pretty suspicious, and I think it's a good policy. I have no objection to it at all. But I'm just trying to make sure this, sometimes we don't get aggressive enough on billing responsible parties, because we're a bystander in that, and I'm not, I'm saying that's just internal. You'll get paid, but I think we ought to be talking to the city about, hey, listen, they were 19 of these 20 incidents or whatever it is were city, not us.
Right, well, I think the state statute kind of dictates who pays, and that's where, we're bound by the statute, so.
Sure, I understand that. Yeah, I don't have any axe to grind with you.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, it's the city. It's always the city.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Okay.
We'll talk about, we'll talk with Joe and others about pursuing the city, and you'll never be involved in it, okay?
Right.
Promise you.
Perfect.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
All right, thank you.
I've still got other questions. I'm
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Boyle, keep going.
Okay, let me go through. And Joe, you mentioned COPE in Western Douglas County, so acronyms are always difficult, but isn't that a group of Christian men and women or something?
Yeah, it's a coalition of Christian churches out in Western County.
Okay, that's important. That's good. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about is the election commissioner, the same kind of question. Is that for the past election, the presidential, or is that for the city that's going on now?
I don't know, Brian, but my understanding at these costs are going on a go-forward basis. So there's 4 petitions that have been filed. I don't know exactly what they're for, but they're in the process of processing to make sure those are valid. And then the temporary pay increases are for employees who they will have working at the polls on both the primary and the general city election. So this is go forward, not pass.
So these expenses going forward, some of them can be billed to the city?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. I think, as a matter of fact, about at least half of them will be billed to the city.
All right, that's great.
Filed. I don't know exactly what they're for, but they're in
I need you to mute online, please.
Then I wanted to ask about, you mentioned under the sheriff's grant-funded expenditures that it's crime lab and all that. I think it's time for us to do a cost benefit on that crime lab. The Douglas County doesn't use it. And I don't know who their customers are and what they're charging. Last time I saw some of the charges, they were incredibly low. And I think we need to do a cost benefit on the operation of that crime lab to see whether or not we need another one. It's always been on my sites, and I think we need to justify it. So anyway, I want to mention that, and I'll talk to you further about it.
Okay.
Lastly, I want to talk about, I guess not lastly, there's a couple other things. This equipment that you talked about with .com, I raised the question before to the nonprofit 501c3 that's in charge of the construction of the courthouse and the juvenile center about whether we should be buying any of that computer equipment or even the security equipment, whether it ought to be, just like today we had trouble with this system up here, whether we should lease it instead, and particularly with technology changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
That we ought to be, do you know what they're going to be doing?
Yeah, this is mostly software, but it's considered capital. But on software, you license the capital because it's intellectual property. So, yeah, the lease versus buy. When we start looking at laptops or servers or things like that, we move toward now that we lease them. But most of this, even though it's considered capital, is software licensing fees.
Okay. Then let me ask about MUD and OPPD.
Commissioner Boyle, I'm gonna give you 1 minute because we had to restart the clock because they cut it off.
What's
so
that?
you were about 2 minutes
sorry.
in, so you got you got about 1 minute. I just wanted to.
Okay, real fast. I'll talk fast. MUD and OPPD have different relationships with us. One is, I believe, OPPD they pay in lieu of taxes, and then MUD pays taxes. And so I think we need to look at the property valuations of what they have, and also if that relationship is still valid or makes a lot of sense. So anyway,
Isn't that defined by statute, though?
Oh yeah, I know that. But I just think we ought to look at some of these things that have been going on and see whether or not they're still working. Maybe maybe they should be doing something different because they've gone from coal to nuclear and all the rest. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Cavanaugh.
Joe, on this $4.333 million for County Administration Emergency Rental Assistance Program, just to clarify, because we've got reports coming from the people at Match, and then there's going to be a separate program for people at COPE. This $4.333 million for rental assistance, which one is that?
This is the act that was passed in late December by Congress that is very specifically targeted towards rental assistance and utility assistance. And I think it's called the Emergency Rental Assistance Act.
It's COPE though. It's COPE.
Oh, but that's who's getting the money. I mean, so the federal grant is the rental assistance grant, but the 4.3 million is, going to be awarded to COPE, and then COPE has a relationship with Dollar Energy, so they're going to be like a one-stop shop where the people in Western Douglas County can get both rental and utility assistance.
Okay, so this is from that second stimulus act that was passed in December.
Right. This is out of the second out of the three. So far, out of the, I think it's called the American Emergency Relief Act, nothing's happened. We're waiting for guidelines. What they're telling us is don't expect any money till May. And at this point, everyone's just waiting for the guidance to come out, and it hasn't come out yet. So we're all on hold waiting for that.
And so this is all COPE, and it would be rent and utility
Yes.
assistance combined.
But that's the only thing it can be used for is rent and utility assistance.
Okay. So we haven't had them in front of us yet for an update. Are they actually providing those, as you heard from the Match people and from the utilities people, they're actually doing that right now. Is COPE in business right now?
They've been working to put it together. They've been working a lot with Match. I think they're both going to use the same software, and they're staffing up. And like I said, they told me when I talked to them on Friday that they anticipate by mid-April that they'll be live and taking phone calls in their website and processing these applications.
Great. And just so people will know, this is for people who live outside the city of Omaha.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else. No, we will. Anybody from the public, if they want to make comment on this at this time. You got one, Joe.
Luis Jimenez, 3306 Bird Street. Joe just said that they're waiting for guidelines for the money that they gave to COPE. Is that right?
No, we have the guidelines
No,
for
the American Rescue Act
the
money.
next one.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. That's the clarification I wanted. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Mike Boyle. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Friend. Seeing nothing online, please vote in the chambers. Roll call zone.
Commissioner Borgeson,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan, we may have.
I think TJ had to leave the meeting.
Okay. And okay, there we go. Motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Borgeson voting virtually. Commissioner Morgan is no longer in attendance, and everyone else voting in person.
Okay. We'll go to letter A, finance report.
One last thing before I leave,
sorry.
Commissioner Rogers, I just wanted to get back to Commissioner Kavanaugh. He had asked about the Deloitte. We had authorized Deloitte fees of $1,560,000, and through the last invoice, we had paid expenses of $1,213,000. So we had about $300,000 left, and that's why when we approved the extension of that, we just extended the date because it is funded. So I just wanted to.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll go to letter A in the finance report. Item one is the budget report. It is as submitted. We'll go now to item D. Item one is the resolution supporting the production of an economic benefit analysis of the NRD's proposed Dam Site 10 project in Douglas and Washington County and supporting in the serious consideration of flood control alternatives to construction. Commissioner Maureen Boyle. It's on.
There we go. All right, thanks. So just a little bit of background. Over the past few weeks, we've been listening to citizens from Northwest Douglas County, and they're in Washington County as well, about the creation of a dam site proposed by the NRD, and after a study by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it was all under the premise of mitigating flood risk. And so bottom line is, I think we all agree that mitigation of flood risk is a good thing for anybody in the county. There was a study by the Army Corps of Engineers that kind of indicated several different ways to do that. And so after we heard the citizens speak, and they had a lot of knowledge about not only their area, but on just floods in general, we just thought we would just dive into this a little bit deeper. So we passed a resolution about a month ago that supported their efforts to do something besides build a dam, which would directly affect their property. So after reviewing other things, we have another resolution to really support looking at a cost-benefit analysis as opposed to just building a dam straight up. So anyway, here's our latest resolution. So whereas the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers produced a final draft feasibility report in January of 2021 that evaluated the flood control projects in the Papillion watershed, and whereas that report recommends a single dry dam flood control project named Dam Site 10, and whereas DS10 focuses on the Thompson and Little Papillion Creeks and directly impacts both Washington and Douglas counties with a projected cost of $128 million and a 65%, 35% federal, local cost share. And whereas Stephen Schultz, a professional consultant who is also the Barrett Professor of Real Estate and Land Use Economics at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, conducted a preliminary analysis of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers data sources and methodological approaches, and has discovered several potential flaws and errors that may reduce the economic feasibility of the project. And whereas considering the extensive future financial burdens that may be placed on Douglas and Washington County taxpayers to fund DS10, and because the extensive property acquisitions and potential benefits associated with the project will occur in these two counties, Stephen Schultz intends to conduct an in-depth economic benefit analysis of the proposed DS10 project Now therefore be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board hereby supports the production of an economic benefits analysis of the proposed Dam Site 10 project and is supportive of an in-depth and serious consideration of flood control alternatives to the construction of Dam Site 10. I present that for a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Maureen Boyle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Friend. Okay. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Yes. I've had discussions with Commissioner Boyle regarding this, and I think that we're all agreed that it's a good idea to understand the economic benefit analysis of this project, because as you heard in the last board meeting, property owners downstream are very, very concerned about the safety of their properties, which run into the billions of dollars in Douglas County, and tens of thousands of residents, relative to the dangers of flood. And insurance companies have stepped up their flood insurance premiums as well. It's also important to note that in that discussion, we talked about the historical flood damage to Douglas County, most specifically the floods of 63 and 64, and in the 64 flood on the same watershed, 7 people died in Douglas County, and there were tens of billions of dollars in property loss damage. That was 50-some years ago. Now that same corridor has exponentially grown, and so the exposure has exponentially grown. And just yesterday, we got a report from Louisville, Kentucky. A flood killed 7 people in Louisville, Kentucky, and did billions of dollars worth of damage there. So I'm enthusiastically supporting a close look at the cost-benefit analysis between some of these Washington County landowners that we heard from, and then including in that, and I'm going to host a number of public town halls on this, the many, many, many property owners and residents in the zone of the floodplain downstream that this would help keep safe. So I think that once we get a full and fair picture of that, it'll be very, very interesting to see what the cost-benefit analysis is between the upstream and downstream exposures. And so for that reason, I'm supportive of this, and I think if we all work together, we can get a real objective and accurate cost-benefit analysis of what this program could entail. So I'll vote for this on the basis of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I obviously agree with Commissioner Kavanaugh. Anybody watching this issue over the last month or so, or has been watching us or watching us deal with this issue, whether we have a really good grasp of this issue from a legal and a statutory authority standpoint or not, anybody that's watching this knows where I stand. And so I'll save you the rap. The question here is, how does the help occur in relationship to Douglas County's participation in this, to whatever degree we have a participation role? And I agree with what Commissioner Kavanaugh said. The data that we have that relates to this subject matter is it's very outdated, and it's potentially flawed. Drastically potentially flawed. And I think support of this type of research is going to be pretty valuable, not just for us to help us make decisions on this subject matter, but also if we're out there with bully pulpits, and we all have one. There's 7 people on this Board of Commissioners, and sometimes people listen to what we say. I mean, on occasion. So I would say that if we open our mouths on this issue, whether we have teeth in it or not is going to be pretty valuable. And if we have the data that resonates from this study, we're going to be in a better place. So I'll stop there. And there's other issues associated with this. There's about 7 or 8 of them. But right now, we're just talking about support for a thought process that relates to more research. So I think it sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh.
I appreciate the comments that Commissioner Friend made, particularly the idea that this is a resolution of intent. There's no dollars attached to this. We're not putting any money into this project. It's a Washington County project, and Washington County is funding the thing.
Commissioner Boyle.
I think it is a Douglas County project as well, because we're paying for the portion that's as taxpayers, we pay into the NRD if they do a dam up in Dakota County. Everybody's in the boat on that fact, pardon the pun. I do want to say that I believe that the Washington County Board has considered an identical resolution or something close to it, and I believe they have passed it unanimously. I know they passed unanimously some sort of concern about the dam, because many of us, including me, and I know Washington County Board, do not believe it's practical or makes any sense. The questions about, these rainstorms, we see them all the time in Nashville and other places around the country, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I've tried to get, and sometimes it's very difficult, the number of dams that failed. And in Cedar Rapids, the number was incredibly high. I mean, I remember a figure somewhere near 34. Dams are not built to prevent flooding. They are not built to prevent flooding. Think about it. You build a dam, we're not talking about Hoover Dam, we're talking about a dam that's in a community. They put a dam up, and the water comes in from the creeks or wherever they do, and it fills up. Now, what do you think happens when you have a 14-inch rain? It comes down and hits that water, and the first thing it does is come over the top, and even portions are destroyed. So this is just a hypothetical kind of a presentation, and frankly, I hate to say this, but I think it's a scare tactic, because I've had people say to me at public meetings, well, do you want to be responsible for people drowning? Obviously not. But do you want to be responsible for taxing the taxpayers of the county needlessly for millions and billions of dollars? The cost of this originally is enough, but the point is the maintenance is unbelievable. There's a lake in Bennington that was built, and they actually pump water into it. I want to say that again. NRD pumps water into the lake that they built because it doesn't draw water. And so what is the point of that? I mean, why are they doing that? Because they're expensive homes that are built around the water that they created. So I would propose that if the NRD is serious about this, that it's for people being saved from being flooded out, I think they should agree to forbid the building of any homes or recreational property around the water's edge back, a mile or something of that nature. To really be truthful about this, is not for recreation, which it is. In the past, several years ago, I had a developer, a well-known developer, call me and started off with, what the are you doing to me? And I said, what do you mean? And I knew Phil well, so he started chewing me out about opposing dams. And I said, look, if you want to build these and then become the attorney for the developer and develop all those lakes, you pay for it. I live downtown. If you want to develop some lakes out there, have at it, but just don't bill the taxpayers, and we don't want to maintain them. If something happens and the water gets contaminated with one of those crazy clams or something, we had it happen a couple of times. They drain the thing all the way down, they go in and put Clorox over the base or wherever the heck they do, and bring it back up again, and if it happens again, that's just millions of dollars. So I think it's time that we take a look, and I'm really pleased about how this has turned out. That we are going to support a neutral look at it. The Army Corps of Engineers is interested. I respect them and everything else, but they are the folks who brought us, in my view, flooding several years ago when they unleashed the water up north and South Dakota and Nebraska, and all that water came coming down the Missouri. We almost lost our airport. We had that nuclear power plant underwater. That was we should have had some dams around them, I guess, to collect some kind of berms to stop the water. So, I mean, this is not an exact science, apparently, but it is purely for recreation. And if that's it, then the Nebraska Parks and Recreation ought to be building this, and we ought to have bond issues and have the public vote. I mean, Mr. Kavanaugh talked about that when we had the juvenile center. The same principle applies. This is massive money, It is a huge budget, huge expenditure, so I really urge the board to pass this, and I'm very pleased how this turned out. We need to have answers, whether this really makes sense. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Maureen Boyd.
Just another statement on this too. I want to make it clear that the Army Corps of Engineers, we're not questioning the engineering. I mean, they are the experts. What we're questioning is the cost-benefit analysis. And so that's why we're supporting pulling in another expert in this. The other thought is also low-impact development really is another way to go. And so it's creating other types of like park and land areas to soak up the water, and the bottom line is the cost of taxpayers could be less because those that have those types of conditions on their properties are the ones typically get taken care of it. So I see that as a significant portion of the cost benefit analysis as well. Thanks.
Commissioner Mike Boyle.
Dr. Boyle just reminded me of something that the city did years ago, a couple of things. One of them is that MP Dodge Park has soccer fields, and they are really not soccer fields. They are dry dams, and they will flood, and it's intended to flood. And I remember going out there when Dr. Boyle was a young lady playing soccer, and I remember out there at those fields, sometimes they'd be underwater, and people come to me and say, what in the world's going on here? How come this happens? And I would explain to them that they were not built for soccer or athletics. They were built for water, and that's what we have to put up with. And the same thing applies to the, and boy, I'm skipping the name of the place, but it's out at 120th and Blondo, or Maple Street rather, that Tranquility Park. Much of that is also dry dams. I mean, it was not built for soccer, it was built for water, and we just have a use for it if it's available. So let's be creative and look at the low-impact development that's around the city, at the University of Nebraska, at the Omaha Public Libraries on Center Street. It really is throughout our community. The idea is let them build it. I say we even give them the money to build it, but they maintain it. That's the killer. And it is a way to percolate the water into the ground, and we don't have these big, ridiculous dams sitting there with all the big homes that, McMansions built around them, and, developers making a lot of money. And I don't have a problem with developers, but I have a problem with taxpayers paying for the lake that they're making money off of. I object to that. Thank you.
All righty. Commissioner Borgeson.
Well, I want to once again, whoops, just a minute. I think can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to state again that for the record that I understand the concern we have to represent our taxpayers, but again, I think we need to be very careful that we don't overstep our authority when it comes NRD, who is a board of elected officials, what they should be doing. I'm fine with supporting this resolution, but again, we aren't in the business of flood control. That's the NRD. But if we want to create a more collaborative partnership with the NRD, I think we need to find a different way to do it than what we've been doing. And maybe have more communication through Maureen Boyle's committee conversations about these and public discussion about them. But I don't want the NRD to think that we feel we're like superior to their decision making or that we're the experts on this subject. But I do believe that we have taxpayers that have reached out to us and want us to hear their voices, and this resolution really is a encouragement for the NRD to look at these things. And so I'll be supporting it with the caveat that we are not telling the NRD how to do their business, because they are an elected board of officials.
Thank you. Commissioner Maureen Boyle.
Yes, I completely agree with Commissioner Borgeson. I think that's why the nature of this resolution is to be more of an information gathering resolution rather than one stating the NRD is doing the wrong thing. So my intent was to make it so that I think knowledge is power, and the more information we have, just like I had asked John Winkler to come speak with the NRD a couple weeks ago, I think that helps us come to conclusions in a less emotional and a more logical way. So my intent really is to create this resolution so that there's the conversation is there, and it's a really, if you take the emotion out of it, it really has to do with a cost benefit analysis, which is pretty much a numbers thing. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one more point. Seems like we're singing Kumbaya here. I'm going to probably ruffle Madam Chair's feathers a little bit with this, but Marianne, and folks, we go down these paths all the time. We're elected officials, and people put us in a position to actually either opine or make decisions, and then we turn around after we make a decision, and then somebody from the county attorney's office or some other area of the world says, you don't need to be making that decision because you don't have the authority. Okay, but we still have opinions, and I think the one perfect example, and I'm not giving you anything you don't already know, but one perfect example is we've on at least 14 or 15 occasions we've told the legislature what we like and what we don't like. Maybe 20, maybe 25 different occasions. Now, I've opined on that before, but let me tell you something. There's 4 or 5 things that actually could happen to us that the legislature is going to do that we ain't going to like. We aren't going to like it one bit. And as a matter of fact, we're going to go into finance and budget, hearings, and depending on what these guys do, these folks do, these 49 individuals and the governor end up doing, it could affect us greatly, and it could affect our taxpayers greatly. So Commissioner Borgeson's absolutely right. I don't want to overstep my bounds, and I don't think anybody else here does either. But I would only say that I don't think we should ever be worried about opining on an issue that affects our constituents. If somebody wants to slap us down and push us back and knock us back in our chairs, then they're more than welcome. And then I'll shut up and crawl under my desk across the hall and hope for the best after that. But anyway, that's my little version of Dwight would be telling me to look for my zipper right now because it's down. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Borgeson.
Well, I just want, you're not ruffling my feathers, Commissioner Friend, but I've always wanted to say this, that you're just wrong. Mike Boyle, Commissioner Boyle will appreciate that.
That's never happened
in all seriousness, I hear what you're saying. The difference is that we are a creature of the state, and we have, to me, that's kind of apples to oranges, comparing apples to oranges in what you're comparing there on how we provide our input to the legislature versus to the NRD. I'm all for, as I said, we had constituents that came to us wanting to talk to us and look at this issue. And again, I have no problem with that. I just want to make sure that, again, we are not overstepping that line. And you're right, I don't think anybody wants to, but for me, I just had to state that.
Thank you. Any remarks in the chamber? Please. Let's go. Who's pro, who's con? Pro?
I'm for the resolution.
Okay, who's for the resolution? Everybody? Okay, then you all, whatever order you're gonna go.
Good morning, Doug Kagan, 416 South 130th Street, representing Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom. Our taxpayer group supports this resolution to conduct an economic benefit analysis
of the NRD proposal for a dam site 10. Corps of Engineers studies have a poor record, underestimating costs of flood control dams in their feasibility studies. An analysis of its methodology found a number of flaws and errors which could decrease the economic benefits from this project. Specifically, the cost-benefit ratios of less costly alternatives mysteriously disappeared from the final Corps feasibility draft. Because the property tax yoke on both Douglas and Washington County taxpayers would increase for this and future unneeded dams, we believe it judicious to solicit a professional second opinion that would offer taxpayers a more transparent evaluation. Taxpayers deserve an impartial review of cost-benefit alternatives to one large dam done by this expert, Mr. Schultz, who I think has exceptional credentials. Such review also could serve as an intelligent guide for future policy decisions regarding other proposed dam sites. The Papio NRD Board, in our view, has a reckless record of continuing the hasty building of expensive dams whose costs forced higher property taxes on residents. Like a boogeyman, the NRD scaremongering warns of catastrophic floods that probably will never occur along the entire watershed. These dams mostly benefit developers and confiscate productive farmland using pressure and eminent domain. We consider this NRD to have a credibility problem, seeking continued general bonding authority to nurture a huge nest egg for dams and ignoring low-impact alternatives like small dams, contouring, channelization, and wetlands that could offer adequate flood protection along this part of the watershed. This NRD ignores the trend of leaving watersheds in their natural state. Understand that the decision on this matter affects your constituents, Douglas County residents. Please vote for this resolution and help fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Next, who's next?
Good morning. I'm Steve Schultz. I'm the proponent or the possible person that would do this study. And I prepared...
Could you speak into the mic,
okay,
please?
sorry. I prepared or made copies of the actual proposal for the study.
So, sir, can I tell you? My understanding was there wasn't going to be a presentation today, so you.
No, I'm not doing a formal presentation. I'm going to be limited to 5 minutes.
Good then. Okay.
Actually, I should mention that originally this proposal was supposed to be evaluated for a funding vote on March 23rd, and the Washington County Board also was going to vote on it that day. So I suggested, why don't we postpone the vote for this Douglas County funding request, which is supposed to be $15,000 for each county, to today, a week later. And Washington County actually approved the funding of $15,000 for it. And then since then, I was told that the funding proposal for Douglas County would be removed from analysis, and instead the vote would be for this approval of resolution supporting the study. Okay, so that's a little bit of a background. Now, there's actually two components of the study. The first is to review the economic feasibility aspects of not just Dam Site 10, but the entire U.S. Army Corps study. Okay, it's a broad-ranging study. It cost $3 million and took 3 years to complete. And it is a great possible resource for going forward for decades in the Papillion Creek watershed. But there are many parts of the study that are not well described or promoted in the current, most recent feasibility final report. Specifically, they analyze a whole wide range of NRD dam projects, and they're hardly discussed at all. Even the final recommended plan, which partly my fault, is not just Dam Site 10. I said that in some of the earlier communications in my earlier proposal. It's more than that. It's doing non-structural improvements as well as dam and levee improvements. And it's two dams. It's Dam Site 19 in Sarpy County and Dam Site 10. Even in the final report and the executive summary, they don't fully describe what the relative cost-benefit or benefit-cost ratios of the different alternatives are. They sort of mask them all together. For example, the building of Dam Site 10 only has a benefit-cost ratio of 1.58 or 1.6. That means for every dollar you spend, you get $1.60 back. But there are other alternatives that are included in the plan, like structural, non-structural activities, buying out people, floodproofing innovations, et cetera, that have a benefit cost ratio of 4.5. So I think it's important for people to realize that the report from the Corps of Engineers needs more interpretation and analysis. Also, many of the rejected components of the plan, some of the other dams, are really put in the back and forgotten about. What's going to happen in a couple of years, the NRD may promote those plans, and they're going to do a new study, or they're going to pretend that the earlier study didn't exist, and some of those dams are completely economically infeasible. So it's important for someone, I think, to go through and analyze the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers study to really tease out what are the benefits and costs of the different alternatives evaluated. And by the way, low impact development, natural ecosystem restoration for flood control was not evaluated in the core study. And I think it's important to ask why that wasn't the case and why the NRD is sort of implying that it was thrown out as being infeasible. Now, the second part of the study is to look at specifically flood damage protection, or how much damage exposure there is in Douglas County. And I actually share Commissioner Kavanaugh's view that if it's shown to be economically feasible for the overall community and the upstream users or the upstream impacted people should be forced to do condemnation or eminent domain. I'm actually a fan of that. And I'm not a fan of it, but I accept it as a necessary evil. But the key thing is, what are the flood damages in the watershed? I think they are over-exaggerated in the U.S. Army Corps study. And I actually have worked with the Corps extensively over the last few years, nationally, not in Omaha, trying to improve their strategies to estimate flood damage. And I think that I could have a good contribution. Now, there's one last thing I want to summarize to do with the study, because it's perfectly honest, I'm not sure I'm going to do this study right now. I think people will fund it, but I think they're advocates for one side or the other. And I generally only do projects that are funded by objective government agencies. And right now, only Washington County has agreed to fund it. If you want to ask me questions more about that later, you can. But I just want to summarize a couple things. First of all, the feasibility study was done by the Corps did not include low impact or natural restoration alternatives. Secondly, the benefit cost ratio of 1.58 is quite low for Corps projects. The Corps generally only funds projects that have a benefit cost ratio of 2.5 and above. They make exceptions when projects do have ecological restoration aspects to them, but this project doesn't have that. And if the flood damages downstream are over-exaggerated, and I have a variety of reasons why I think that's the case, then that benefit cost ratio will get a lot lower. So there's no guarantee that in its current form, the project will be funded by Congress. The report obscures the fact that non-structural components have much higher benefit cost ratios. That should be in the executive summary. Instead, you have to go to a table in the appendix to find that out. And finally, the recommended plan will not remove downstream property owners from the regulatory floodplain. This is very important. I know Nebraska Furniture Mart and many other people have likely been contacting you. For some reason, they have been misled, and I don't know by who, that if dam site 10 gets built, that they are going to be out of the regulatory floodplain. That's not the case. The report does not state that in any way. In fact, if it was the case...
I'm actually wrap up.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up the last thing. If it was the case, the Corps would have, in their report, analyzed economic benefits from future development and costs, administrative cost savings from not needed national floodplain insurance. They do that in other locations because it's an economic benefit. It was not done here because there is no economic benefit about the floodplain.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Who's ever next? Come on, whoever's coming.
Luis Jimenez, 3306 Birch Street. I've been participating in your meetings, and I remember when you had the resolution for the citizens that did not want the NRD's project. So my question is, what you're getting involved with recently, that's only for Dam 10, right? This whole time you've been talking about one project, which is Dam 10. Okay, well, it's not like you're going to the NRD and saying, okay, stop everything you're doing. Let's look at all your dams. No, it sounds to me that there's concerns from a segment of the residents that are being affected in a real way. So you're looking at this one project. What's the harm in that? I don't think that you're going to be stepping on their feet or interfering in any way when you're saying that they are concerned about the safety and of their property. Because what happens, and you guys brought up, past floods, is a real concern. And I want to also be part of that, the discussion about emotion and logic and how public officials make their decisions. Sounds like the city council when they talk about making the decisions, and oh, we can't do emotion, can't do it. That's not something that should take hold. That you can't use emotion. For me, a lot of logic and data will provide my emotions. There's nothing wrong with that. It's what comes next that matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Douglas County Board. My name is Grant Malotz, 14024 Blair High Road, Omaha, Nebraska, 68142. I want to thank you for your time today in considering this proposal. This study that the Corps and NRD are doing is being pushed through with underlying data using over-exaggerations that are very easy to be seen by anyone who reads the nearly 2,000 pages within this report. As an accountant, I do what I call a smell test through the client's numbers. For example, if I have a construction client whose gross revenue is $250,000 and $50,000 of his expenses are in automobile expenses, I say to myself, that smells funny. Well, when I go through the details to make up that $50,000, $45,000 of it was a new vehicle they bought, which should be capitalized as an asset. If that $45,000 is not removed from the expenses of his books to be a capital asset, the financials are misleading. Therefore, I applied this same smell test logic to this report and came to the same conclusions on the damages. It smells funny. For example, I'm puzzled why $39 million worth of cars would be destroyed if it were to flood. Common sense tells me that people would drive their cars to get out of a flood area, which would lead me to believe minimal car damage. Another example is on dam site 10. Why, through all the numerous studies over the past 50 years, has determined dam site 10 is the least feasible dam of all of them? And now all of a sudden it's the most feasible dam of all of them, especially when every other dam on the Corps study, as part of this study, couldn't even get past a 1-to-1 cost ratio as a dry dam? That just smells funny to me. And I'm just a farm kid with a master's degree in accounting and a master's in agricultural and biological system engineering, and I can smell the issues within this study. I could go on and on with numerous examples of money-smelling items within this report, but I don't want to take up all your time, as I know you have numerous other items to tackle that may be more important. I do want to, however, thank you for considering this proposal. It is the most important item to me right now. I ask that you vote yes on the proposal to make sure this report is fact-checked by someone who at least gets the page numbers right with the table of contents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sean Malotz, 10404 North 132nd Street, Omaha. Thank you again to the Douglas County Commissioners for staying engaged in our very passionate and very predominant issue that we have in front of us. I did not intend to speak today, but I felt there was a little clarification, I think, in what's going on. Commissioner Cavanaugh mentioned something that this was a Washington County study. It really isn't. It is a Washington and Douglas County involved study. I believe only 15% of the project area is in Washington County. A majority of it's in Douglas. Close to 70% of the tax that the NRD collects are from Douglas County residents. So a lot of this will probably be funded by Douglas County residents. But what I told myself I wouldn't ask this, but my fear after listening to Dr. Schultz talk is that if the funding is not available from Douglas County, he may not do the study. The Washington County Board agreed to fund up to $15,000 of the $30,000 cost. So that's my only point I'd like to make today, is the fear that the study may not move forward without Douglas County funding. And I realize the resolution doesn't specifically ask for that, but I don't know if there's any concessions that can be made. I'd appreciate it. Thank you to the board. I appreciate all you've done for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, there's a motion and a second. Roll call Zoom. Please vote.
Commissioner Borgeson,
Yes.
I'll have to do a voice vote.
Roll
I'm sorry,
call all.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Marine Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Borgeson voting virtually, all other commissioners in person.
Okay. Item F has minutes as submitted. Item G, the Human Resources, item 1 is the Civil Service Report as submitted. There are no items officially listed under legislative issues. And we do have need for an executive session for litigation, contract negotiations, and personnel. Is there a motion to go into executive session for litigations, contract, and personnel?
Mr. Chair, can
Yes,
I
sir.
make a comment first of all,
Um,
or now or later?
I'll let you do it in the discussion piece of executive session.
Okay,
Uh,
now, later.
Well, I need a motion to.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle to go into executive session for litigation, contract negotiation, personnel, seconded by Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, I just want to briefly say that with my discovery of cancer in early February, that I have undergone some surgery to make me a better candidate for further surgery. And I just want to state to the county board that I plan to be participating in all of the meetings one way or the other. I feel terrific. It's pretty insane. But I do feel very good. I think I'm gonna beat this whole thing with all the support I've got. And I want to thank everyone who's given me encouraging words across the board. It's just written really, really nice. And I intend to participate, as I said, in every meeting that I can. Some of them, when I start getting chemo and so forth, my immune system may be compromised. If it is, I'll be doing it as much as I can over the television and so forth. But I want to thank everyone for their support and their cooperation. I really appreciate it. And it goes without saying that having a really bright young woman as a doctor for a daughter is pretty terrific. She's been a real help to me. So if you have any questions, ask her, and she'll pass the party line on to all of you. So thank you for your support. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, there's a motion and a second, and again, we're going in for personnel, contract negotiations, and litigation. Please vote and roll call. And we will meet in 9:03 between 11:55 and noon.
Commissioner Borgeson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Boyle, and Mr. Chair.
Oops, sorry.
It's okay. Motion passes 5-0. Commissioner Borgeson voting virtually, the other 4 commissioners voting in person.